Hey, this is Jason Zook, and I am excited to be back on the 360 Entrepreneur.
This is episode 67, and today we get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at a product launch. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yann ilunga.
Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to the 67th episode of 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. And today, we get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at a product launch. This episode is perfect if you're working on a product or you're thinking about launching your first product. This episode was recorded for you. We're joined by the very first returning guest of the podcast, Jason Zook, who was here with us in episode 29. He talked about how you can grow your business by using creativity and outside-of-the-box thinking. Before we get started, let's take a quick break to celebrate International Podcast Day that is coming up next week.
International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. International Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. First, head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Second, use hashtag podcastday to join in the conversation. Remember September 30th. Now, let's start the conversation.
All right, you find the show notes with the links to everything Jason and I talk about at 360entrepreneur.net/episode 67. Here it comes. Behind the scenes look at a product launch with Jason Zook. Hey everybody, today is a very special episode for the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast because we have the very first returning guest. He was here with us in episode 29. You may remember him. I'm talking about Jason Zook. And in episode 29, we talked about how you can grow your business with creativity. And today we're going to get an exclusive behind the scenes look at this new project that is coming up. And I'm talking about Project Galaxy. And this episode is an idea. The idea behind this episode is that we really get an exclusive behind the scenes look at a product launch. So, Jason, welcome back on the podcast.
I am honored to be the first two-time guest. Let me tell you, that is fantastic, Yann. Thank you.
Well, you bet. You've been one of the very best, and our conversation has been one of the most downloaded ones. So it was a no-brainer asking you to be back, and obviously you have the new project, which makes this a perfect time for the conversation. So, in case actually there is someone who's joining us for the first time and has no clue who you are, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am a unconventional entrepreneur, I think you could say. I'm most well known for getting paid to wear t-shirts for a living for 5 years on a website called iwearyourshirt.com. And that wasn't crazy enough. I sold my last name twice to the highest bidder when my mom went through an unfortunate divorce and I was left with a last name that I didn't want anymore. So I did that 2 times and then eventually now have the last name Zook, which is not a sold last name. It's a family last name that I found deep in the family archives. And then I wrote a entrepreneurial adventure book, as I like to call it. It's a nonfiction book about my story, but I crowdsourced the sponsorships for that book and had 204 people basically give me money in advance to write the book. I didn't have a single word written or a single copy sold. So I made $75,000 writing a book when I didn't even know what I was going to write about, which was really cool. So that book's called Creativity for Sale, and it basically walks people through a real behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and the mistakes that I made and the things that I messed up. But yeah, and now we're here today talking about my next crazy project, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, your book, your adventure book is, I told you the last time we spoke, is one of my favorite books. And guys, in case you're here, definitely stick with us until the end. And once you're done, check out episode 29. I highly, highly recommend it so that you can learn more about how you can grow your business with creativity. And you can learn more about Jason's book, Creativity for Sale. All right, Jason. So you have Project Galaxy. And I think, the first question here is really about the name, about Galaxy. You really wanted to do things in a huge way.
Yes, yeah, I did. I mean, I think that this project is very much about my future, and aptly named. The code name was Project Galaxy because it's big and it's out there and it's vast. And so what I'm doing is I am selling my future. And I'm right now, as this podcast is going live, for 2 weeks, opening up the opportunity for people to spend $1,000 to get access to my life's work. So that includes work that I've already done, which is 8 projects valued at about $2,500. One of which is my online learning platform, which would normally cost $600 per year. And I'm guaranteeing 6 projects over the course of the next 2 years, which are 2 books, 2 courses, and 2 other web applications. And then for the rest of my life, I'm basically saying, if you pay me $1,000 one time, I'm never going to ask you for money again, and you will get access to everything I will ever create going forward.
This is really groundbreaking, Jason. Like you said, you're really an unconventional entrepreneur. You're really creating, you're experimenting. And this is, it sounds very, very interesting. And as you told us, when people, it's going to be, the doors are open for a couple of weeks, so until October 6th, and people can get access to the work you've already created, the products you've already created, the trainings and everything. And this is basically a lifetime ticket to the Jason Zook's festival.
It is. It really is. It's your kind of your all-time access pass, where you just keep showing that pass every time I create something or I do something, and you get access to it, and you jump the line ahead of everybody else. And I think that's the really interesting thing is I'm a creator, I'm a maker, I'm a doer. I have really found my stride in building things that help solve problems for entrepreneurs and small business owners and people that just want to think more creatively and sell their products in a congruent way that feels like natural to them. We were talking a little bit before we got started about, there's all these different launch strategies and there's all these different sales tactics and techniques. But for me, that's why this project came up. This Buy My Future project was because I didn't like selling. I don't like putting up a landing page and a squeeze page and then the follow-up email sequence and all of these things that work. I understand that they work, but I just didn't want to do them. So I'm really hoping that through this process as well, I build a community of people who want to challenge the status quo, who want to do things the way that really feels good to them. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, no, that definitely is exciting. And you talk about you have built a community, and you've obviously you blog very often. But one of your recent posts, and guys, like in every episode, you find the link to the post, to the Project Galaxy website, to Jason's book, and everything else we cover in the show notes. You've written a post where you talk about how to build a community, and you shared some tips and some of the things you have done for building your community. So maybe it's a good place to start from before we dive into the nuts and bolts of Project Galaxy. So do you have any advice for the listeners in case maybe there is someone who's just starting out? What steps can they take to build a thriving and engaged community?
Yeah, I think one of the first things you have to do is you have to draw a couple lines in the sand. And you have to, first of all, you have to say, I'm not in the community building part of it because I want a large audience. Because I've had a large audience and it really was unfulfilling. And the people didn't buy my products. They didn't really even want to keep getting my messages. They only showed up because I was incentivizing the growth of that. So I think that's the first thing. You just have to understand it's not about the amount of people, it's the quality of people that you want to have in your community. And the second thing is to really clearly define, who do you want to be interacting with? Because I think a lot of people, they see someone build a community or a business around some topic and it's successful. So they go, oh, maybe I want to do that too. But they don't really evaluate, but are those the people that you want to hang out with? Like, I'm sure I could build a community of real estate agents very quickly, but I don't like real estate agents. No offense to real estate agents. I'm sure they're nice people, but I don't want to interact with them on a day-to-day basis. The people I want to interact with are the ones that I clearly define as action takers, entrepreneurs who are taking risks, creative professionals, people who want to do things differently. If you're one of those people, if that resonates with you, then come on over. And the third thing is, be okay with people not wanting to be in your community. And that's a hard thing to do because we all want to feel accepted. We all want to feel like we matter and that people care about us. But it's at a certain point, if you're trying to build a community, which then will help build your business and put money in your bank account, you don't want people that don't align with your goals and your values and your vision. And so I'm actually I tell people often, please unsubscribe from my email list if you don't like this email. I don't want you just hanging around because you actually cost me money by being on that email list and you take away my time and energy. So those are just a couple things that I think can really help people as they're getting started. And also to understand that it doesn't happen overnight. That's something you hear from, I think, everybody who has a community that's valuable to them. It takes a long time to figure out exactly who you want to get in that community.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. And as I said, guys, you find more details on also Jason's personal story of building his communities in the post in the show notes. And another thing that I really liked about Project Galaxy, and I was telling you this actually before we started recording, is the journal. So you have been really journaling the whole process from start to finish. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about, well, maybe first off, why you really decided to not necessarily to take notes and journal, the steps, but also to share them with the world. So maybe that's the first question. And the second one is where people can find the journal so that they can kind of take a quick dive into Project Galaxy after they're done with this interview.
Yeah, as I was thinking about this project, and we're going to interchange the name of it from Project Galaxy to Buy My Future, it's the same thing. The website is buymyfuture.com. But for the journal itself, the way that I thought about it was I have done previous projects, and in those projects, I have written recap posts of here's how successful this was. Here are the things that I did to get to this point. But in those recaps, you forget about all the little moments of struggle and self-doubt and fear and, the things that get messed up along the way.
Right.
And that's the stuff that everybody needs to learn from. That's the stuff that also everybody deals with whatever they're working on. And so I thought to myself, if this project is going to be such a big project for me, I want to share with the world the journey that it takes to get there. And I want to be completely honest and open with how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And so I set out to write a 60-day journal every single day, except for Sundays, just because I wanted a day off. And I would just write every day. And so, usually what I would do is write at the end of a day what happened that day. So it was kind of like I would post it in the morning and it would tell you what I did the day before or maybe what I was working on. And so every single day I wrote about a different topic, whether it was the expenses for the project, whether it was the branding development for the project, whether it was how I dealt with all the questions of what if no one buys this? What if people hate me? All the things that we do think about. And so I wanted to share this every day leading up to the launch of the project because I wanted to show people exactly what went into it. And I also felt like if someone's going to buy my future, if someone is going to invest in it, and those people have come along with me on this 60-day journey, they're going to have a really good idea of who I am, how I work, and it's going to be a little bit of marketing for me. And so how I did this journal was I chose to do it on Medium and not on my own website. And the reason for that is because my own website, much like the people listening to this who have their own websites, are a closed ecosystem. It's very hard for you to get organic viewership on your own website. Yes, SEO is totally a thing you can do, but I'm trying to do something now and for 60 days, SEO is not going to help me. That takes too long. So my thought was, I'm going to post these journals on Medium. Medium has an ecosystem. It has organic reach. People can search tags. They can find related stories below. If they follow you on Medium, they get notifications. So it just made more sense to me to post it there. And so every day I posted a new story on Medium and I put it under a publication called Project Galaxy. And I think last time I looked, there's been about 35,000 views of, I'm as recording this, we're 3 days before launch. So there's 58 days of posts. But 35,000 people basically have looked at this project and looked at some part of it, which I think is just a really unique thing that I would not have been able to do on my own, platform or on social media or whatever. And if someone wants to go back and read the very beginning, the link is easy. It's just bit.ly/Project Galaxy, capital P, capital G. I know you link things up in the show notes. So it's pretty easy to find, especially if you just search Project Galaxy, you will find it fairly quickly.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, as you said, Jason, just a reminder, it's going to be there in the show notes. And I think this is already a very interesting takeaway when it comes to product launches, because you told us about the importance of really kind of putting yourself and your message where your audience or your potential customers are going to be. So you told us in your case, you wanted to reach more people. You wanted to do it in a relatively short period of time because it's 60 days. And with SEO, that takes more time. And obviously, there are a couple of days before Project Galaxy launches as we are recording. It's going to be at the same day this episode actually airs, so September 22nd. And I'm sure that there are so many things that you have learned throughout the getting your hands dirty with the journaling, looking back. So I wanted to ask you if you can share with us some of your thoughts. Obviously, we can't predict yet because you haven't officially started since we are recording a couple of days before the launch. But what are some takeaways that you can share with us up until now?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the biggest things for me as I was building this project are, number one, it's not my first project. So I have a lot of previous experience to go off of, which has been very helpful in dealing with the doubts, dealing with the challenges. So I think one of the first things was I gave myself plenty of time for this project. Mm-hmm. And we all get excited when we have a new project idea and we want to get it out the door and we set a deadline. And that deadline is like when we work up to. And for me, I basically set a deadline weeks in advance to get buymyfuture.com, the website, up and ready and completely functional. So what's interesting is that the website's been active for about 3 weeks before the project launched. Mm-hmm. But obviously no one knows the name. So it's just a website that exists on the internet that no one can find. So that's a really interesting and helpful thing for me because we could test all the payment stuff. We could tweak every piece of copy and image and all those things way in advance. So that's a crucial thing that has been great because it removes so much stress and so many issues, and just buffering that extra time is really important. The other thing I think that's been really interesting through this process, for me at least, is it's built my own level of excitement for this project. It's built my own really strong interest and fun and like just emotional roller coaster for this project where, sometimes you get kind of caught up in all of the work that you can't enjoy it. And I've just really enjoyed it. Every day I've just really come to enjoy it. And I think there have been other projects I've worked on. And again, I hope your listeners can relate to this, where by the launch day or even a little bit into it, you kind of loathe the project. Right. At that point, you're so burnt out on it and you've seen it so many times. I don't feel that way at all. Like, I'm so excited for this. And yeah, okay, it's a project directly related to me and my future, so that's different. But I've done this before in multiple places where I get to the end and I'm like, ugh, I don't really want to do this anymore. So yeah, those are a couple of things that jump out for me.
Nice. And so if you're here with Jason and I, and maybe you actually stumbled across the domain buymyfuture.com and you were wondering what the heck this website is about, you just got the answer from Jason himself. So again, it's interesting that you talk about the importance of giving oneself time. And obviously you said you have had experience before with launching books and products, online trainings, and all this kind of stuff. So that definitely helps. And if you look at all of your product launches, so Project Galaxy and the previous ones, do you have some kind of step-by-step advice? Obviously, every project is very different, and the way you launch a book is not necessarily the same as you launch Project Galaxy. But can you manage, are you able to identify some kind of step-by-step processes that people who are listening to you and I can put into practice into their own product launches for whatever project they might be working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I'll preface this by saying that every product launch is different. And even, let's say you decided tomorrow you wanted to sell your future and build your own buymyfuture.com website. It would be a whole different set of circumstances and context and things. So that's why I get a little bit nervous when people follow things like, launch formulas from other people or whatever, especially to a T, because yes, the strategies and tactics can work. But the thing that's most important is, do you want to do those things? And so I think for me, the way that I launch any project or build up any project is I want to enjoy the process. I really do. I want to make that happen and make it fun. So a couple of things that I like to do. I make too many to-do lists, and I don't make any to-do lists online. I write all of my to-do lists down in journals or on Post-it notes because I like the physical interaction of scratching something off, of taking a red marker and just swiping through a to-do item, because it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. And then I can crumple up the paper and throw it away. And this may sound silly to people, but if you've never done that, if you've only done your to-do list online and you don't write anything down, try it. It's really helpful for me. It makes me look forward to finishing things that I'm working on. So a couple things that I like to do, one is with every project, I like to think about how I can build buzz. And a simple thing that I do almost every single time is I build a website where people can enter their email address to know that something's coming. And so for this, I actually bought the domain jasonisuptosomething.com, which by the time you listen to this, that's just going to redirect to Buy My Future anyway. But it was just a little landing page. It had a countdown timer on it of when the project was going to launch, and you enter your email address. And that was it. So it's a little teaser, a little interest. And then I would promote that a little, places here and there, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or in these articles that I was writing. One of the other things that I like to do is I like to get pieces of content that I can share associated with the project just to build interest. So not even necessarily to drive people to that sign up page, but just to get people going, oh, what's being worked on here? What is this? Because then they're primed. Then they have some level of kind of connectedness to the project, as opposed to you just saying, boom, new project link. Here it is. Go check it out. And then people are like, I don't even know what this is. I've never heard of this before, or whatever you're doing. I'm completely just surprised by it. So those things are really important. I think those things are tangible things that other people could do. And then I think, really I set myself up for doing a bunch of interviews, podcast interviews. So I reached out to a lot of people. I pretty much had a list of probably 60 podcasters. I ended up talking to only 20 of them. So you kind of have to know that you're going to get some no's and people's schedules aren't going to work out. And there's just been a couple of things like that where if I'm working with other people, I make sure that my list of who I want to work with is 2 to 3 times bigger than what I actually kind of want to have done, because I know I'm going to hear people saying no and they're not going to be able to do it.
Jason, you are so rocking this conversation. I'm really enjoying it. And before we carry on, let's take a quick second to check out today's sponsor. I don't know about you, but lately I've been really listening to audiobooks. I love reading, I love listening to podcasts, so audiobooks are a perfect solution. I rely on Audible. If you would like to check Audible out, you can go to 360entrepreneur.net/audible, sign up and get a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial for Audible so that you can listen to an audiobook from a catalog of well over 180,000 titles, and there is all kind of things you can think of, from entrepreneurship books to fiction and fantasy. Once again, the link is 360entrepreneur.net/audible. Yeah, you're right. And on this last point, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that the same applies to books. And as you said, especially when it's podcasts that maybe aren't necessarily flexible, maybe they have already guests booked for the next couple of months. I mean, that's my case right now. For example, after this interview with you, Jason, I have the next couple of months already fully booked for guests. So if someone approaches me or I reach out to someone, I try to do something in a couple of months from now. So if you're working on something, think about the things Jason has shared with us right now. I really like it. So think about, first of all, about having fun, about enjoying the creating process, about enjoying the journey. Think about ways you can build buzz and get people interested in the product, and not necessarily by saying, okay, go here, sign up, you'll get notified and make sure to buy, but just tease them. As Jason said, make sure to actually look at his journal, because I think that's a perfect example. And if you're planning to launch something, regardless of what it is, I'll definitely recommend doing something similar. So starting to trigger people's interest, educate them, start to provide them with some bits of information here and there, and provide them with small and quick wins. And I want to ask you, Jason, you talk about interviews, you talked about, you write posts, you talk about social media. You told us also how we can grow our community from scratch. And I want to ask you about the kind of opening and closing time or time period, so to speak, because you told us Project Galaxy, the doors are open from September 22nd until October 6th. So if there is someone who is listening to you and I, maybe he or she is working on something, and there are so many different product launch formulas, as you said, that there are many different models, and maybe one is wondering, okay, what should I do? Should I keep my doors open all the time, or should I put an end date, beginning date and end date for when people can actually join? Do you have any tips on maybe why maybe on what you have done and what people can learn from that?
Yeah, I've tried a lot of different product launch things. I have products that are open all the time. I've done the whole webinar sales game where it's only available for like 48 hours after the webinar. I have done like a monthly launch where you have a month to buy, and now this Project Galaxy Buy My Future project is 2 weeks. I think with every project, I look at it as what feels right to me for this project. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily what has worked some way for somebody else, not necessarily what's going to maximize revenue. Because at the end of the day, I've built projects focused on maximizing revenue. And even though it's made good money, I haven't felt good doing it. I haven't really enjoyed it. And so I really focus on what can make me feel good about this, where sure, I'm going to leave some money on the table by not leaving buymyfuture.com up all year round. Mm-hmm. But I'm also building that project because I don't want to do sales all the time. Right. I want to focus on creation. I want to focus on helping people. And so doing a 2-week window really makes sense for me. So I think when people are looking at their own projects that they're selling, my girlfriend has a hand lettering course that's $20. Mm-hmm. It's sold over 2,000 students. It's crazy how popular it's been. And it's open all the time. And it works perfectly for her because it does make consistent income every single day. And that works great for her. But, I have friends who have $1,000 courses that they only open, once every 6 months or whatever, and they'll make $100,000. But that's how the way they want to launch those. So I just think that you have to find the one that feels right to you, which may only happen, Yann, by doing things multiple ways so that you can figure out which one did I really feel the best at, not which one made me the most money, because the money thing can come and go, but the feeling good about what you're doing, that's something you have to establish and then reinforce going forward.
Yeah, no, you're so right, and motivation is what drives our engine, is our fuel. So it's what really pushes us to go forward. And talking about different ways to launch a product, I would like to quickly talk about Bumpsale, because now is available to the public. And I remember, I don't remember if I mentioned it in our last interview, Jason, but I remember that you used it for your course 1 Week to Profit. So can you tell the listeners what Bumpsale is and what it can do for them? Because when you use it, I was like, man, this is like such a great way to launch an online training.
Yeah, Bumpsale is it's right now, it's a free application because we're just getting started. It's at bumpsale.co. And what I have done is over the years, I've used this pricing scheme of, when one person buys, then the price goes up for the next person and the price goes up after that person buys. And you create this incremental pricing. And so, when I launched the 1 Week to Profit course, like you mentioned, it was $30. And then when the next person purchased it, it goes up to $31. And then when the person after them purchased it, it goes up to $32. And the beautiful thing about the Bumpsale button is when you sign up, which, like I said, is free to sign up, you create a little button. It gives you a bit of code. You drop that code wherever you want to put it. And then on the website, as you're promoting the launch of whatever your product is or anybody seeing it, the price will increase on the button right in front of your potential customers, which is such a cool psychological thing because they'll see the price going up and you can choose whatever increment you want as the creator of your Bumpsale button. So you could start a product at $100 and increase it by $10 every purchase. or you could start it at $5 and increase it by 5 cents every purchase. So you can control all those variables. And it's just a really interesting way to add some kind of psychology to selling something online. And I think Bumpsale it gives people the opportunity to basically bring a new way to sell something that maybe has been dormant for a while, or that they've thought, oh, this didn't sell as well as I thought it would. You can relaunch it, which I think is a beautiful thing to always do with products, and use Bumpsale. And if you kind of figure out, oh, I think maybe 100 people will buy this. Well, if you started at a low price and increase it by $1 per purchase, you're now giving some incentive to people who may not have as much money, that they get a chance to get in early and then maybe share it, and that'll build the buzz for it. So Bumpsale takes 3% on every transaction, just like Stripe does, and it's super easy to use. There's no monthly fee or anything, and you can actually use it right now at bumpsale.co.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, for telling us about that. And you touched on the pricing, and I'm sure it's also something people, especially when launching their first product or even their first book or whatever the case may be, they're wondering, do you have any advice on how to kind of come up with the right price? I mean, I don't like to use the expression right price, because I really feel that you never really are like completely satisfied with the price you come up with. But do you have any advice on how people can come up with what feels a right price?
I think there's a couple different ways you can do that. Bumpsale is a really interesting way where if you're doing like a pre-launch of a product and you're thinking in your mind, okay, I think this course or whatever is going to cost, let's say $200. Well, if you started at $1 and you say the value of this thing is $200, but you're in a pre-launch for the next 24 hours or whatever, and you send it to your list or anything, and let's say it ends at $125, then you kind of know that the max value that people put on that is $125. So maybe you should lower the price to see what if that price sells better. So that's one way. I think another way is to look at things that are kind of in your same market that people are selling, and look at their price and say, okay, does that feel right to me? Because a lot of this is really just your gut feeling based on your audience. If you have an audience of people who have purchased only $10 products or $20 products, and now you say, hey, here's a $1,000 product, it's going to be very hard for you to sell that product to them, right? They're not used to that. But if you have people who have spent a couple $100s or whatever, then you can play around a little bit with, maybe email some of your previous customers and say, this is the next product I'm working on. The price that I'm focusing on is, $300 or so. Does that feel right to you? And here's everything that's included. And listen to their feedback. You don't have to take their feedback by any means, but see what your customers are saying. And if they're saying, yeah, that feels about right, or no, I kind of would expect to get a little bit more, that's another way that you can validate your pricing.
Wow, thank you, Jason. You're really rocking this conversation. So, guys, there you have it. Now, some tips on how you can come up with a price that feels good, not only to you but to your customer, more importantly. And Jason, really, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes of Project Galaxy and for sharing your wisdom for product launches more in general. And to wrap up this conversation, I'd like to ask you for some final words of wisdom, some final words of encouragement for people who are really getting inspired by what you do, and maybe they want to try Project Galaxy out, or they just want to come up with their own epic Project Galaxy. What will you tell them?
Yeah, I think I would probably tell them, what is the thing that is most unique to you? What is your special skill or talent? Because I like to think of myself as someone with no special skill or talent. I'm not an artist. I'm not a musician. I'm not good at anything that you can kind of put into a conventional box that describes me. Mm-hmm. But I think my talent really lies in the execution and in being a unique person. So I really thread those things into my project where I know I'm going to get the work done. I know I'm going to make things happen. And I know that I can put my own unique twist on things. And so I would just tell people listening to this, what are your things? What can you really pour into whatever you're creating? Because there's probably going to be another version of what you've done. Maybe. I mean, for me, a lot of the things that I do have not been done before, but it's a rare thing that you can continue to find things like that. And as you build those, how can they just be so unique to you? Because that's your unique selling point beyond the price, beyond the features. It's what makes the customer better that you can provide that they can't get anywhere else.
Amen. That we couldn't have had any better words to wrap up this awesome conversation. So guys, make sure to go to buymyfuture.com to check out Jason's new project, Project Galaxy. And also, if you are interested in learning really more about it, if you want to follow Jason's journey from day zero until today, go to the show notes page of this episode. You find the links to everything, and in particular to the journal behind Project Galaxy. Jason, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, and good luck with the launch.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate being the first two-time 360 Entrepreneur guest. You are awesome.
All right, everybody, we are back. Jason, thank you so much for being back on the podcast, for telling us more about buyyourfuture.com, and for sharing tips on what to think about and do to do a product launch. And you heard it, guys. Buy My Future is available. The doors are open just for a few more days. So make sure to go to buymyfuture.com, where you find all the information you need to know about that. And if you want to learn more about Jason, definitely go there. Or in alternative, you can go to the show notes page of this episode. Again, 360entrepreneur.net/episode 67. And there you'll find the link to the interview we did with Jason a few months ago. All right, this is it for this episode. If you found it useful, you know someone who's about to do a product launch, make sure to share the link with them. And thank you for doing that in advance. I really appreciate it. I'll be back with you on Thursday with another great episode. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.360entrepreneur.net.